my name is Vin Zeeland, and this is the Culture Strategy. I want to welcome you back to this episode with Mike Rochelle, and we're going to be talking about culture. And I just want to go through the list of the 7 pillars, putting people first, having authentic relationship, open communication, building trust, healthy conflict, ability to pivot and being adaptive, and organizational resilience and overcoming change. Mike, I want to welcome you to the Culture Strategy. Thanks for coming in on such last notice.
No, it's great to be here.
Right on. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and we'll go ahead and start with a fun question.
Okay, great. So my name is Mike Rochelle. I'm the Chief Learning Officer at Mike Rochelle & Associates. And at Mike Rochelle & Associates, we deal with human and digital transformation. So I've been a technologist for 32 years. And in most of that time, I've been doing coaching as a side hobby. Probably 10 years ago, started turning that into a full-time gig. And now I do both. So I primarily focus on the human dynamics side of teams. But I also have strategic services for actually doing digital transformation as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the fun question here, and this is just going to be off the wall because I just want a good laugh and break a little ice here because we only met just I don't know. Well, we met last year online, but this is the first time we've met in person.
It is.
We've had some phone conversation. So actually, why don't you go ahead and tell that story?
So I actually have 3 different cohorts from 3 different companies that I'm working with right now through a leadership acceleration course that I call Good to Great. And the first thing that I do with each of the participants in the course is I meet with them and I do a one-on-one and basically read their strengths from Gallup, both going through their All 34 Strengths guide and their Insight guide. So I use Calendly because I am efficient that way, right? I can provide everybody with my calendar and they can just choose an hour that works for them and then we're all good. Right. So I get this meeting that pops up on my calendar and it's this guy named Vin Zeeland, and I don't know who Vin Zeeland is because I can't remember anything from day to day, right?
Right.
And my calendar's full of people. And I get into the call, and I'm asking Vin for his All 34 report. And he hesitates for just a second. Also, the interesting thing is he was sitting in a car, which was a little different than most of my interviews. And I asked him where his report was, and he goes, well, am I supposed to have that? And I said, yeah, you're supposed to have that. And I'm supposed to have your Insight guide as well. So he says, well, hold on just a second. And he actually did it. He went and he found his All 34 report and send it to me via text. And then
I carried on my phone.
It was in a different color, and I knew that it wasn't Gallup. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, how did we meet, Vin? And that was kind of the interesting way for you and I to
And I said,
together.
I want to interview you. Like,
I'm like, oh, okay. So
this is podcast.
So you're not a client at this point.
No. So we let it go. We were going to meet the next day and actually cancel that meeting too. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you coming out and
great.
taking the time. So, fun question. Let's break the ice here.
Okay.
So, what would be the most fantastic animal to scale to the size of a horse?
Interesting animal to scale to the size of a horse.
Yeah. The most fantastic animal. What's your favorite animal that you'd want to scale to horse?
Well, I mean, if I had to do it, it would be a tarantula.
Ooh, a tarantula.
Yeah, I like horror movies. So, there were always the horror movies with the gigantic crabs and things like that.
Right. Did you watch a lot of the Godzilla Japanese?
Yes,
exactly. The big monsters.
Exactly.
Yeah, the black and white ones.
So nothing would ruin your day like a horse-sized tarantula.
Yeah. So that's a fun story. So I sent my daughter down to Mexico. She was 16 years old. And she didn't want to go. She says to me, Dad, I don't want to go to Mexico. I said, you're spoiled. And you need to go to Mexico. You need to find out how the rest of the world lives.
Right.
And so I sent her down to Mexico. And she calls me from the airport on her way back. And she says, Dad, you're not going to believe this, because she's terrified of spiders. She said, we have to hang our towels on a line. We had to shower underneath a hose with a plastic curtain around it. She said, when we hung up our towels afterwards, she goes, the next day I went out and there was this massive tarantula between the towels. And I said, what'd you do? She goes, what do you think I did? I screamed and ran. So it's so fun. All right. So the purpose of this show, as I mentioned, is it's all about business and culture.
Right.
So I always ask my guests the same question. The first, real question is, why is culture important to business?
Yeah, so just about everything that is done emanates from the leadership of the organization. This is my perspective on culture.
Of course.
Right? So basically, whatever the character of the leadership team is what emanates throughout the entire organization. So if you have a healthy executive team that is striving and driving with purpose and with meaning towards a specific goal, are very communicative of their vision, and empowering to their people, then you're going to have a powerful and a good culture. And if you have folks that are driven by fear and trying to manage in a negative way every action of everybody, over engineering it, then you're going to have a negative culture. And it can get toxic as well. I mean, it can go down from there. So it really depends on the leader.
Yeah. So that I refer to it as there's 3 stages of business, right? So there's that operational mindset, that mindset of micromanaging, and everything is about hair on fire, getting things done. It's about things. And then you have the tactical. It's a notch up. It's a little less micromanagement, but then you go up to strategy, where you become more innovative, right? It's strategic, and it's collaborative. It's a community of people who are going for the same goal,
right?
And they're walking in the same way. So, talk about that. So, you've worked with a lot of businesses and all across the country. The last time I talked to you, you were traveling to, I think it was Pennsylvania, and you've probably been to a few places since, right?
Right.
So tell me about, over the years, the types of cultures that you've seen that have been like the best, the most engaging, and you work with a lot of different clients. So what do they tell you?
Yeah. So I have one client that I can talk about for almost the entire span of my coaching career. Awesome. When I met him, I was doing a leadership forum here in Dallas in early 2000, and I had graduated from that program in '97. And one of my peers was from AT&T Wireless. She said, "Hey, I'm going to send you this guy. You need to watch him. He's going to become something else." He was like a senior manager at AT&T Wireless at that time.
Okay.
His name is Vin Zeeland. If you look him up, he's now the EVP and CTO at Mattel. I've also worked with him at DirecTV, Pearson Education, Time Warner Cable, a couple places like that.
Okay.
From my perspective, the best culture, like I said earlier, has a person at the top who is innovative, who is agile in their thinking, who is embracing of the possibility of failure, and allowing people to experiment and fail fast, right? And
fail forward?
Fail forward, yeah. But I don't know, the fail thing you may not want to hear, right? Most organizations don't want to hear it.
I just wrote about this last night.
But the whole purpose in it is to stretch yourself beyond what you are comfortable with.
Yeah.
And allow that flexibility so that people can also do it below you. Yeah. And their people can also do it. And their people can also do it. Right. So you can get more done, and you actually move the organization forward.
Right.
Because if you want to stay the way you are, then you're going to be a risk-averse organization and an individual that is risk-averse.
Right. And that takes a little bit of humility as a leader to fail and not have a bunch of people come and beat you up.
Absolutely.
Right? But what it also does is it clears a path, right? So you fail, You got that out of the way. Now you learned, right?
Right.
You know, the whole Edison thing.
Right.
999 times to figure out how not to make it.
Or whatever.
Right. To make an incandescent bulb. But, I just wrote a paper about Nintendo. It took them 100 years from being a card company in 1889, I think it was,
Wow.
to becoming a video game superstar around the world. It took them 100 years to get through all the things that they tried to do. And then all of a sudden, you now have Nintendo.
Right.
And the reality is, I think culture, if leaders really understood the purpose, the strategy of culture and the role that it takes, that it plays in increasing their bottom line,
Right.
everybody would be on board. But what is it that leaders don't get about culture?
What is it that they don't get?
That they don't get? Because I've worked for a lot of companies that they don't seem to understand. They're like, their hair's on fire. They're like, we can't focus on culture right now because we're bleeding.
Yeah,
right?
so you're a strengths coach as well, so you'll get this.
Yeah.
There are certain personality types. And so I teach unique leadership, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is a unique individual,
sure.
one of one. There are not, there's no another one of you. There's not another
Thank
one
God.
of me.
Thank
Exactly.
God.
It'd be scary at that point, right? But they have to lead from who they are and what they are.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain personality types just by nature that are more introspective and more risk adverse. For those individuals, the leap to innovation is a little harder, I think, because they are used to doing risk-free moves that continue to move them down the path.
Okay.
But that old adage, what got you here is not going to get you there.
Right.
Right. It applies to yourself, but it also applies to your team. So one mistake that some might make, and that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Is that they surround themselves with people that only think like them. So if you are on one spectrum of the risk reward kind of a personality profile,
Yeah.
My challenge to you would be go find people that are different than yourselves. Right? Embrace them, and
That's
then
right.
mitigate the risk, right? By having other people that are around you that think differently and move you forward. And I'm not saying that any personality profile is in a worse place to do that than anybody.
No.
Everybody has to do it.
Sure.
But I think that particular perspective is one that you have to weigh.
Yeah. So being a strengths coach, and I'm very familiar with Gallup, one of the studies that I read may have even been in one of their books, but they talked about women. So I'm going to give the shout out to women because CEOs that are in those they tend to hire differently than men.
Sure.
Right? Women seem to understand that you have to hire diversity to find that strength. Men, as you pointed out, tend to hire people who are much like them.
Correct.
So there's a lot of new blood entering in that are female leaders. That
Sure.
I think it's good.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it's good.
So there are not only personality differences, but there are gender differences in the way that we approach life. Without getting into the specifics,
Yeah.
I would just say that diversity of all kinds is good,
Yeah.
as long as it's in check with what the mission of the organization is and what what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So living out the mission and the vision and the values and not just hanging it on the wall.
Right.
To just be nice decoration and these are nice words,
Correct.
right? So talk about that a little bit. So if they were to write out their mission and their vision and their values, how would a leader, because you work with a lot of leaders, how should they get them to engage that and kind of keep it at the forefront to get the most out of running their business? What do you suggest?
Yeah, so I'm going to lean on another expert, Patrick Lencioni. Basically he says that you have to communicate the vision, and then you have to communicate the vision. And when you think that you've communicated the vision enough, it's not enough. You need to communicate the vision some more.
There you
right.
go.
So the leadership's role is to create the vision of the future and then enable the organization to grow into that vision, right? They may not have all the answers. They may not have all the things that need to be done in order to get there, but they have to lay it out in a way that's compelling and powerful so that people get it and then can move towards it with the building blocks that they have, or whatever organizational structure they're responsible for.
Awesome. Very cool. I love that. So communicate the vision, and what was the last one?
Communicate the vision.
Awesome. All right. So if someone asked to be your apprentice and learn about your role, what is the first thing that you would teach them and why?
So if I wanted to teach somebody about my role, I would teach them about themselves first. Because if they wanted to do my role, they would not do it the way that I do it. They would be fools to do that. They would do it the way that they are best created to do it. They are best gifted to do it. They're best talented. And then how they've expressed themselves throughout their career, how they've built their strengths, right, and become that. They may identify some things that they want to borrow, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine, but they're going to make it uniquely their own. And when they make it uniquely their own, then they may become a better version of whatever it is that I'm trying to model for them.
So leadership is not about cloning you.
No.
It's not about owning you.
Correct.
It's about elevating you and making you into who you were meant to be.
Yeah, so it's that old thing. So if you love something, you have to let it go, right? If you really care for your people and you want them to achieve everything that they're capable of achieving, then you're going to enable them and you're going to empower them and you're going to support them in becoming the best version of themselves, not the clone, like you said.
Right, yeah. I've seen that. You know, there's these, and I get processes and procedures. Like I get why they're there. Systems help structure the framework.
Right.
But you can't stick the person into the framework and have them operate within that box. You have to give them an opportunity to show what they can do within that system and structure, and maybe they may even come up with a better process themselves, right? Hopefully. Yeah. Maybe. I've actually seen a lot of processes that I didn't agree with and fixed it. I've also watched other people do the same thing where they just said, you know what, I'm just gonna chuck this, and I'm gonna fix this and help it along. And it was brilliant. It really made a difference.
Yep.
So from your past employee experience, who do you admire as setting a good example for work culture? I think you touched on that. You said his name was
Sven Gergitz.
Yes. Go a little bit deeper into what they did. Like how did they set the example? Maybe elaborate on that a little bit more.
I'll stick with him since we're already talking about it. So he has restorative very high on his list, right?
Yeah.
And restorative is the ability to be able to dig through stuff endlessly, energized to figure out what's wrong and fix it, right? So he's made a career out of going to places that had broken processes, broken IT organizations, and then fixing them,
it. Yeah,
right? That's what he does. So he's leading with his strength, and then he also
was that his number one strength?
I don't remember exactly the placement of it, but he uses it very well. He also loves people, right? So this is the thing where he and I connect. He loves people and he wants them to succeed, so he gives them the ability to do so.
Sure.
And then he also, probably more than anybody that I've known, supports the organization through the development of those capabilities as well. And that's something that's lacking. I would say he's probably in the top 1% of leaders in the country who are willing to provide the organization with the capability development that they need in order to thrive.
There you go.
Right? In the day where everybody says that our employees are our number one asset.
Right.
I have a problem with asset or capital or whatever they call people anyway. But the whole point is that they're saying that it's on the wall, like you said, but they're not doing anything about it.
Right.
So
right.
action speaks more than words in that regard.
Right. Well, you know, I've spent some time training people, and you know, when I would spend time talking with them about, you know, the business, I would the first thing that I would open up with during their orientation is say, hey, you know what, guys, these are our features and these are our benefits of the company. But what is the number one feature and the number one benefit of the company? And they're all like trying to figure it out. And then I say, it's obvious, it's you, right? And they've never heard that before. Yeah. And to me, that's shocking that people don't hear words of encouragement from leadership. And then when it's like getting hit with cold water, when they hear it, they're like, startled, you know, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, there's one other personality trait that he has that you mentioned, but I want to double down on it. It's humility. So in most places that I go, eventually I'll get to the 5 levels of leadership by John Maxwell, because once you know who you are, you know where you're going, you know how to get there. Then you need a measurement of how effective you are as a leader. And Maxwell's 5 levels is the top. I really love it.
Yeah.
And
I have his leadership Bible, and that came from Brandy Shade. So shout out to Brandy.
Very good.
Yeah, it's great.
So the thing about it is that in that there's an assessment where you get to say who you are and what you do and what level you are.
Yeah.
And the whole key to the process is that level 1, you need to check off so many things that you're doing before you can move to level 2. And he's one of the first ones that'll stand up and say, look, you know, I'm brand new here, so I'm less than level 1 here.
There you go.
Have you ever heard a leader say that?
No.
So be able to say, look, because I am new, I haven't established myself here.
Right.
Even though, and I think he's a level 5 leader, right? And he has been at other places.
Sure.
He understands that he has to build to that as well as the people in his organization.
Yeah.
So when you can be authentic enough to allow that you are learning and you are growing and you are becoming and you are serving, right?
Yeah.
Then that service is the key, and then the people will get it and they can follow that kind of leader.
That's right. That's right.
So I think that's another distinguishing thing that makes a big difference for people.
Well, John Maxwell, I have to say something about that. I go to Liberty and I'm working on my master's. I'm just about finished. And but when I went for my undergraduate, I also went through Liberty, and I was supposed to go to my commencement. And John Maxwell spoke that year, and I didn't go. I said, I will never make that mistake again, because they didn't tell us who was going to be the speaker. So I missed out. I could have actually seen him do the commencement speech and watch his son and granddaughter graduate the same year.
Interesting.
So, in my class.
So I took an online class from Liberty on C.S. Lewis. He's one of my heroes.
He's my favorite author, actually. Yeah. Love him.
So it's a great. It's online. It's free too.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh well, I'll have to study that, because I'm all about Lewis and Tolkien and all that. You don't want to start down that. The Inklings. You do not want to start me down that road, man. We'll never stop talking.
All right.
Now there are 8.9 million managers in the United States. According to Gallup, 86% could be better leaders. Right. 1 out of 2 people quit jobs because of management.
Right.
That's not a good environment. You talked earlier about toxicity. Right. So in your experience, what should companies do to help improve management skills and leadership skills?
I mean, you're an old trainer. You know what I'm going to say. You have to develop your people, right?
Yeah.
So the reason that people are frustrated with their current levels of management is that if you go to school to get a degree in management, they teach you about things. They don't teach you about how to manage people, right? You go get a job and you begin performing at whatever the job is.
Yeah.
Let's say you're a coder, right? And you're coding and you become really good at coding, so they advance you to supervisor.
Sure.
Okay, well now you're a supervisor. You still don't have any management training, but you're responsible for 3 or 4 other people. So where do you get your models? Well, whoever was your supervisor when you first came into the organization, which is 5 levels below the top leaders in the organization, right?
Right.
And there is no mentoring programs that are happening by and large.
Yeah.
So the biggest gap right now that we have, especially from millennials and newer, is that for 20 years, internal organizations have shirked their responsibility on helping people to understand what it means to be a good manager.
Yeah.
So it's no shock
Yeah.
that those statistics are what they are.
So I having a degree in psychology, and I love, not that I'm a statistician.
Right.
Numbers really actually don't interest me except when it means something, right? And
They're so significant. They have to
right,
be.
right. So 8.9 million managers. There's about 120,000-ish professional licensed counselors in the United States, and there's only 22 to 25,000 professional coaches.
Right.
Coaches elevate people. Psychologists just try to understand the mental breakdown, and managers, I mean, they're the ones breaking things.
Right.
So are people, right. And that's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mess, and it breaks my heart. And and that's what the whole point of the culture strategy is it's not about making the managers the whipping boys, right? It's about making the managers realize, helping them to understand, like, these are human beings you're working with that work for you.
Right.
And they come to work, you hire them, trust them,
Yep.
right? Help them, cultivate them.
Enable them,
cultivate them, and grow them.
Right.
Because really, people want to grow.
That's right.
They want to go to work, not just to
By
do
and
a job.
large, they do.
Yeah, for the most part, right?
There are some that don't. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Awesome.
the outliers.
Well, hey, I appreciate you coming out. We're
Yeah.
about the end of our time here. Mike, why don't you go ahead and let the audience know where they can find you, how they can do business with you? Because
Sure.
this is not just about, me, talking about culture. This is about, being a megaphone for other people who are trying to make a difference.
I appreciate that.
And so go ahead and share
Yeah.
with our audience.
Yeah, so easiest way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. I have 2 different podcasts. I do one that is called Growing the Next Version of You, and that's much like this, but it's more of an interview about a person's background and who they are, what their origin story is. I have one coming out next Tuesday with Steve Gandera, the managing partner of Excellent Cultures. Because like you, I have associates that are in the business as well, and I like to help them out. So, and then I have another show called Growing Solutions. They're all on the same channel. And the Growing Solutions shows are short format, 10 to 15-minute shows about how to do something. The Growing the Next Version of You are anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, and they're more open dialogue kind of conversations.
Oh, cool.
But LinkedIn is the best place. You can also find me on Mike Rochelle and Associates on any of the podcasts, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, Apple, Google, etc.
So you're an integrated marketer. You're out there.
I'm
You're
out
just,
there,
You're
yeah.
just out there messaging.
Yeah, I'm out there messaging. LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect.
I love LinkedIn. It never used to be my favorite social media, and now it is.
Yeah.
It really is. Nothing wrong with Facebook, but during COVID, I got tired of the drama. Really did. I had to shut it down a little bit. And LinkedIn, there's less.
Yeah, there's less, and I think Facebook has calmed down too, and or I've filtered out all that mess, one or the other, or both, right? I'm not going to say which. Actually,
I'm
December,
ghosting you.
In December, I did a cleansing of my account list and my contact list.
Did you hire a priest?
No, I actually did it myself. I went through my phone. I deleted 1,300 contacts.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then at Facebook, I'd been doing that for a while.
Okay.
Mostly, it was just people I hadn't talked to for 10 years or
Okay.
more, right? So it wasn't like I wasn't targeting people. It was just like
They're not coming over for barbecue.
Exactly, and their email doesn't work anymore because they've moved to different companies.
There
or whatever.
you go.
So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate you coming in, taking your time out of your busy schedule.
It was a blessing to get to know you and your mind a little bit better. So I'll look forward to that. And then who knows, maybe I'll have you over on my show too.
Hey, I'd be happy to do that.
All right.
Well, from the Culture Strategy, this is Vin Zeeland, Mike Rochelle, and we appreciate you all, and we wish you the best in your work life. And we're here to help you connect your business with culture.
Welcome to Threadpool. We're an all-inclusive podcast factory. Podcast made easy. We operate with a done-for-you approach. If you have a great podcast concept, we can help make it a reality. In less than 8 weeks, we can have your amazing podcast fully produced, making you ready to share your podcast worldwide on all of the major podcast streaming platforms. Book a coaching session to see how we can work with you. We are Threadpool, revealing greatness.